Welcome to the Second Chance Act Children of Incarcerated Parents Program Performance Measures Training. Today we're going to talk about understanding your program data, how to prepare, how to collect, how to track, and how to report on program data. Understanding and reporting useful and accurate data is a critical component in the solicitation and award process and can help both yourself and your program manager gain key insights on many decision-making factors, whether those factors be related to time, resources, or funding. OJJDP uses performance data to not only understand the agency's story, but also to demonstrate outcome-based results. In this training session, we will go over the revised performance measures, and we will discuss collecting and sharing information to help all of us better understand how well the Second Chance Act Children of Incarcerated Parents program is operating on the ground. If you'll take a moment and respond to this question for us. What is your biggest issue with collecting, tracking, and/or reporting data? And we'll give everyone a minute to type their response. Charmaine has posted, making sure that we understand all of the performance measures we need to collect and report on. Kelly is posting, ensuring there are no duplicates. Lastasia is posting just grants. Tracy is posting just grants, fillable documents. Okay, the agenda for today includes the following program overview: performance measures, collecting and tracking data and best practices, reporting data and best practices, as well as reporting in a pandemic and what to do with personally identifiable information will be presented. Lastly, we will review key documents and resources. As we progress through the training, all website links mentioned during the training will be presented to you in chat and also provided to you in your copy of this presentation to be emailed to you later this week. The objectives for today include understanding what the performance measure updates are for your program and understanding the need for a data collection plan for the data that you collect between July 2021 and December 2021, reporting in January 2022. Further, you will gain understanding of the performance measure reporting due dates. Now, as you know, these due dates happen twice a year, July 30th and January 30th. Lastly, you will understand where to find supporting resources. In the showcase sessions we conducted last April, we talked about the newly updated performance measures as outlined in your solicitation or award and located at the OJJDP.ojp.gov website. This training is being presented to you to emphasize the fact that now is the time to start planning on collecting and tracking data for the July through December 2021 reporting cycle, with the goal of reporting in January 2022 on these newly revised program measures. I'd like to pass the microphone to Sarah. Sarah?
Thank you, Rebecca. In the intervention division, we have several programs. The program that we're talking about today is the SCA Children of Incarcerated Parents program. The program summary is that the incarcerated parents, their children, and caregivers experience safe, stable relationships and positive outcomes pre- and post-release, and children of incarcerated parents and correctional facility staff are free from victimization. The first goal is for children of incarcerated parents to live productive, law-abiding lives. The second is children develop a positive relationship with their incarcerated parent when safe and welcomed by the child. And the third goal is to decrease recidivism of incarcerated parents. Next, we will remind ourselves of the performance measures process and then discuss the newly updated performance measures found in this program. As you review with me, please note that these are the newly revised performance measures, but you will recognize some of them have not changed. The framework or logic model used to write the performance measures includes 4 components: inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes. Inputs are program resources such as grant funding and award administration. Activities are actions that convert inputs to outputs and can be anything from identifying key personnel with access to crime and alcohol abuse data to establishing information sharing agreements. Outputs are products or services that are the result of activities such as trainings and meetings. Outcome measures speak to the longer-term program goals. The newly updated performance measures will require changes in the way you collect data, and that's why we're here today, to ensure that you understand you will be reporting on the newly updated performance measures during the July through December 2021 period come January 30th of 2022, and that you have a plan in place to do so. OJJDP identified and organized the newly updated performance measures to include 3 different categories. The categories include overall measures, multi-program measures, and program-specific measures. In overall measures, grantees will be asked the same overall questions in every program. This allows analysts to aggregate data across multiple programs and assist with responding to ad hoc data requests. Multi-program measures impact 3 different types of populations. One is shared targeted populations, such as children involved in the child welfare system or tribal youth. Another is those with a similar service delivery model, such as mental health services or prevention services. And lastly, those with shared outcomes, such as youth provided with defense counsel. Program-specific measures collect data that align with a specific population, funded activity, or desired result. These measures help reflect the unique outputs and outcomes for each specific program and distinguishes them from other programs. Program-specific measures also help track the progress of individual programs over time. Next, let's look at the performance measures for your program. We won't be able to go through all of them, but I wanted to highlight those that I thought may prompt questions over the next 6-month data collection period and continuing through the life of the award. To report this overall individuals served measure, you will report on the number of individuals served by population. This performance measure captures the total number of individuals served and is broken down by the number of children, youth, young adults, parents or legal guardians, and additional family members. Since OJJDP funding is targeted to serve children and youth, the various categories of individuals served help OJJDP isolate the true number of children and youth served. This measure also captures the number of individuals who were carried over and the number who were new admissions during the reporting cycle to avoid duplication. Percentage of eligible individuals served by an evidence-based program or practice is an overall service delivery output measure. A program or practice is defined as evidence-based if up to 3 rigorous outcome evaluations demonstrated its effectiveness by measuring the relationship between the program and its intended outcome or outcomes and has the ability to replicate and scale when implemented with fidelity. You will provide the number of individuals served by an evidence-based program and also the name and source of the evidence-based program, which you will provide in a text box located within Just Grants. Percentage of eligible individuals served by a mental health treatment service is a multi-program service delivery output measure. Mental health treatment services are services that help an individual with a mental illness to improve a situation, relieve symptoms, manage a crisis, or deal with an issue through communication with and attention given to the individual experiencing the issue. For this measure, you will simply report the number of individuals served who received mental health treatment services. Percentage of eligible individuals attended a parenting education service is a multi-program service delivery output measure. Parenting education services is a process that involves the expansion of insights, understanding, and attitudes, and the acquisition of knowledge and skills on the development of both parents and their children and the relationship between them. For this measure, you're going to report the number of individuals served who attended a parenting education service. Percentage of eligible individuals' case plans informed by parents or legal guardians is a multi-program family engagement output measure. Case plans informed by parents or legal guardians include plans where parents and guardians actively contribute to the decision-making, development, and implementation of their child's case plan. For example, identifying goals and objectives and service needs, recommending revisions, and monitoring completion. For this measure, you will provide the number of case plans created and also the number of case plans informed by a child's parent or legal guardian. Percentage of parental visits where the child or children appropriately participated is a program-specific family engagement output measure. Appropriate participation is when a child or children safely and voluntarily chooses to participate in a parental visit free from parental or other adult pressure, urging, coercion, or force. You will provide the number of parental visits, the number of parental visits that followed a protective procedure, such as screening, attendance of a guardian ad litem, number of parental visits where the child or children appropriately participated, and also the type of protective service followed, which again, you will be able to provide in a text box within JustGrants. Percentage of parents or caregivers who demonstrated the ability to apply new parenting techniques is a program-specific training and technical assistance outcome measure. Individuals demonstrate application of parenting techniques based on child and human development that support child milestones and healthy parent-child interactions. You will provide the number of parenting education participants who demonstrated the ability to apply new parenting techniques. Percentage of eligible individuals who received a behavior infraction while incarcerated is a program-specific parent outcome prevention intervention measure. Individuals cited by prison officials for a behavior violation of the prison's code of conduct or disciplinary code. Count the number of individuals who received a behavior infraction, not the number of infractions. So for this one, you will report the number of individuals imprisoned and also the number of imprisoned individuals who received a behavior infraction. And now we have 3 more to go through. For this one, percentage of eligible individuals who participated in positive leisure or recreational activities is a program-specific protective factor outcome measure. Leisure and recreational activities are structured or unstructured activities that an individual chooses to refresh their mind and bodies. Some examples include walking, meditating, or reading. And you will report the number of individuals who received services to promote participation in positive leisure recreational activities, and also the number of eligible individuals who participated in positive leisure and recreational activities. Percentage of eligible individuals with a positive parent and child relationship during parental incarceration is an example of a program-specific program quality outcome measure. Report the status of parent-child relationships prior to the parent's incarceration and the status of the parent-child relationship during the parent's incarceration. Assess the parent and child relationship a minimum of 1 time during the parent's incarceration. A positive relationship is defined by the assessment tool. You will report the number of imprisoned individuals, the number of positive parent-child relationships pre-parental incarceration, and the number of positive parent-child relationships during the parent's incarceration. And lastly, we have percentage of positive parent-child relationships post-parental incarceration. For this, you will provide the number of individuals released from imprisonment and the number of positive parent-child relationships post-parental incarceration. And now I'm going to hand it back to Rebecca.
Thank you, Sarah. We have a short scenario for you. We have Brenda here, Brenda Sukup. She is a Second Chance Act Children of Incarcerated Parents grantee, and she's just received these newly updated performance measures. She's attended this learning event, and she's sitting at her desk wondering how to get started. What would you recommend that Ms. Sukup do to prepare for the data collection that's happening now, July through December 2021, and reporting in January of 2022? Please respond in the chat box. Charmaine is posting tracking sheet. Kelly is posting review the required data collection questions, meet with project team to discuss collection tool. Raylette is posting meet with your evaluation team and develop the proper tools to collect the data needed. Maria is posting determine collection tool, tracking sheets to collect data and timelines. Johnny is posting visit OJJDP. I'm assuming that's the website. Jenny is posting create data collection plan with internal team and TA. Thank you. Very good. Let's move on. In terms of collecting and tracking data, we have some best practices to go over with you. And we'll start with creating a data collection plan. Creating a data collection plan does require a good deal of pre-planning and preparation. When creating a data collection plan, best practices often include locating the performance measures for your program, as you guys just pointed out, understanding what each question is asking and determining how that data value is represented, even if that answer ends up being a 0. Creating a plan that identifies when and how you will collect that data, again, as you guys pointed out. Has the tool or instrument that you use to collect the data been identified? Has it been validated? Has it been used before? How accurate is this tool or instrument? And lastly, who will be using the tool or instrument to collect the data? There are several best practices you could implement when collecting data for the upcoming reporting cycle. You want to be proactive in your approach. You want to designate staff for the coordination of the performance measured data collection process. You want to review the progress reporting questionnaire before entering data. You want to ensure that designated staff participate in trainings. You want to pay attention to communication from Just Grants. And lastly, if applicable, you want to review, edit, and validate data with sub-grantees before submission. Grantee and sub-grantee relationship. You're required to enter data on all performance measures that relate to activities described in your approved OJJDP grant application and carried out with OJJDP funding. As a grantee, you should plan to collect data on behalf of all of your sub-grantees. Some things to think about as you plan to collect and track data include timelines and resources. After all, this can be a lengthy data collection period, as noted in your solicitation. Some of the questions you may want to consider while planning include duration of data collection and document version control. Does your plan include a beginning, a middle, and an ending date? How will you manage documents over this time period? For example, will you track them using an Excel spreadsheet or some kind of tracker? Regarding location and access, how will you store the data? Who will have access to it? And if it is stored on a shared drive, who is given permissions and by whom? Lastly, how will changes be communicated? How will the data be validated and edited if applicable? Next, let's review several best practices for reporting. In the January 2022 reporting cycle, you'll be reporting on the newly revised performance measures and crafting the narrative. Narrative questions provide you with an opportunity to answer or address these topics. What do the numbers you reported on in your performance measures actually mean on the ground? How does your work impact your community? You want to use the narrative to walk the reader from the numeric output to the tangible outcome. And you want to use specific and detailed examples to illustrate your point. Other things to think about include providing evidence to support conclusions, answering the question, what has funding allowed you to do that you could not do prior to receiving funding, and could include words like COVID-19 and pandemic when explaining your COVID-19 adjustments to the program. What you see here on the screen is an example of a narrative. Next, let's discuss best practices for reporting in JUST grants. Common issues arise since you are required to respond to every question. When reporting zeros, if a measure does not apply, you could enter a 0 value and then add an explanation by selecting the comments field. A brief description, such as we are still in our planning period, or there was no activity during the reporting cycle, are acceptable responses in JUST grants. Avoiding duplication of count can be very challenging as well. Having more than one person review the data, for example, a program manager, can help ensure duplicate data does not exist in your reporting. And as you know, reporting is awards-based. Another best practice for those of you with multiple awards when trying not to duplicate data is to spend down funds and create a final report of activities you performed for the oldest award first, before beginning to enter data and reporting on another award. If this is not possible, you want to prorate your quantitative data according to the amount of each award, again, for those of you with multiple awards. You want to contact JUST grants with any concerns related to error messages found in JUST grants. You can save your data and resume data entry at a later point in time in JUST grants. And for more information such as this, you want to visit the YouTube video on the screen and provided in chat. You may want to contact the PMT Help Desk for any questions related to progress reporting or reporting on the newly updated performance measures. You are encouraged to reach out to your program manager with questions or concerns. As mentioned previously, some grantees may receive funding from other awards. A service should be reported under one program or the other. The same service cannot be reported under multiple programs. If you have difficulty tracking services for each specific award, work with OJJDP program managers to identify an appropriate method for prorating all services to allocate numbers to each award. You'll be reporting on the activities that occurred between July and December 2021 in January of 2022. The reporting deadlines are July 30th for the reporting period January 1st through June 30th, and January 30th for the reporting period July 1st through December 31st. Please note, more information regarding reporting in JUST grants will be forthcoming. Reporting on the new measures. If you are a 2019 and earlier grantee, this training is not directed at you, but you have stayed to learn more about the new measures. Regarding the 2020 and future grantees, even though JUST grants does not yet have the functionality to accept data for the new measures, these trainings are being conducted to ensure that you begin tracking data in support of the new measures. Doing so ensures that you can report your program data once the system functionality is available. Lastly, no modifications are being made to the existing measures in the PMT system, as it will be sunsetting eventually. Collecting and tracking data that contains personally identifiable information, or PII, should be done with consideration towards the Privacy Act of 1974 or NIST 800-122. Broadly stated, the purpose of the Privacy Act is to balance the government's need to maintain information about individuals with the rights of the individual to be protected against unwarranted invasion of their privacy. In accordance with this act, you want to collect only the data you need. If you are using printed materials, keep sensitive PII in locked desk drawers, file cabinets, or similar locked enclosures. And when using sensitive PII, keep it in an area where access is controlled and limited to persons with an official need to know. Reporting in a pandemic. You should complete progress reporting to the best of your ability and submit it before the deadline. Every progress report form includes a narrative field or multiple narrative fields where you can provide additional information about the data. Use that space to explain any incomplete or missing data. You're encouraged to use the narrative field that asks for additional information about effectiveness to describe COVID-19 related adjustments to programming and other activities not captured elsewhere on the form. If you cannot provide accurate count for numerical progress report fields, because project partners do not have access to files, for example, you should leave those fields blank rather than providing estimates. As a best practice, you want to communicate all setbacks and successes through the use of progress reports, as well as with your program specialist. So how do you report on activities now that they've been shifted to online remote platforms and when you have not been collecting detailed data on individuals served like you did in face-to-face sessions? The short answer here is to do the best you can and make very good use of those narrative fields. I'd like to pass the microphone to Muniba now, who will discuss the various resources at your disposal and where to go for assistance. Muniba?
Thank you, Rebecca. Now we will briefly go over resources and where grant award administrators can find additional assistance. The PMC Help Desk is available to help you with any questions you may have about responding to the progress reporting questions or performance measures. You can contact us by calling the number on the screen or emailing ojjdp@ojp.usdoj.gov. For a faster response, we encourage grant award administrators to send us an email. The OJJDP PMC Help Desk contact information is available on the screen. Our office hours are Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, except for U.S. federal holidays. The PMC Help Desk returns emails and phone calls within 24 hours, so please don't hesitate to leave a voicemail or email even after business hours. Just Grant support. If you have questions about the Just Grant system, for example, accessing the system, please call the number on the screen between the hours of 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and Saturday, Sunday, and federal holidays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If you experience any issues with Just Grants, we strongly encourage grant award administrators to reach out to Just Grant support. Just Grants information, such as instructions on locating, completing, and submitting performance reports in Just Grants, can be found on the OJJDP.ojp.gov website or by viewing the video available on the screen. You can also log into Just Grants at justicegrants.usdoj.gov. Thanks. Now back to you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Muniba. Let's take a moment now and reflect on what was presented. First, we discussed each of the program-specific Second Chance Act, Children of Incarcerated Parents, program performance measures. noting specific instances where data would need to be collected and the type of data needed. Next, we discussed best practices for planning, collecting, tracking, and reporting on data for the July through December 2021 reporting cycle. An important takeaway is the fact that OJJDP understands that data collection has begun and organizations, agencies, and subawards need time to review, process, and create a data collection plan for these performance measures. Some indicators will be easier to collect than others. We encourage you to work with your partners and TTA providers on a data collection plan. So, what is next? Next steps include the opportunity we all have to collect data that will inform change down the road. For our part, those changes come in the form of edited performance measures. You'll be receiving a fillable feedback form that you were requested to complete and return to the PMT Help Desk once you have familiarized yourself with the newly updated performance measures. There is one form per performance measure with plenty of room for narrative. Providing us with the feedback on these measures gives us information we need to fully understand those challenges that you may face implementing any particular measure. Collecting your feedback now informs the refresh cycle and helps us identify change or update. For now, however, no planned changes to the performance measures are being considered, and we would request that you do not make any changes to any of the documents posted online or provided in training sessions. And this concludes the session for today.